Welcome back, everyone, to Open Line. Glad you are with us. Talking about President Joe Biden's first 100 days in office. What are your thoughts? How do you think it is going? How should he be graded? Want to hear from you. Have several calls here, so let's go to the phones. Let's go to Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey, good evening, Ben, and good evening to the professor. First of all, right now, it seems like the only obstacle that people are trying to stick with as far as the first 100 days is the border situation with the children and everything else. It's not President Biden's fault that the word got out when he got elected, and once he was sworn in that, hey, we can go over there, everything is all good, and that went out. So that's not his fault that went out. It's a false narrative. But he's trying to do the most humane thing he can, because we had an administration that was totally the opposite. No heart, no feeling for these people, no caring of separating a mother from the child. So it's a lot to clean up. It's like if I was an Airbnb host and I rented my house out for a week, I come back and they trashed the place. Well, it's just not as easy as changing the pillowcases and the sheets. I literally have to gut this thing out, get all the beer cans out, all of that stuff, and basically start from scratch. So, and then after what we've had for the last 4 years, it's really nothing Joe Biden, in my mind, can do wrong. It's just no contest, and I think he's doing well, and I've had my first shot and looking forward to the second one. Get designated out there, y'all. Thank you.
Mike, all right, thank you. Covering a lot there. Mike had his first shot. Well, that's great. Way to go. And so he's talking about the border wall. Or the border. One of his executive orders was to stop construction of the border wall. This is certainly... You said it was asked, there were a lot of questions about it in the news conference. Question is how big a concern is it for people? But yeah, I guess, again, what are your thoughts on that whole issue coming back up?
Well, it's an interesting issue, because I think Mike was right that a lot of people felt that the last administration had been inhumane in its handling of immigration. The separation of children in cages, these sorts of things were, it inspired a lot of anger and dismay among people. The United States wants to think of itself as a welcoming society to immigrants, to those who need asylum, this sort of thing. The problem is that there are an awful lot of people who want to come to the United States, and that does pose issues, because there are people who will be coming, and it is going to require helping to both assimilate. It's going to put strains in certain ways on education systems, other things to help and care for them. On the whole, my own sympathies are for more immigration. I think we can handle it, but one has to recognize that there are certain costs connected to that, and you want to have an immigration system that also encourages people to come legally rather than to simply come across the border. So I think that the immigration question, one of the reasons we haven't had much progress on it is immensely complicated, and it does involve a lot of competing values. And right now it seems that I think people are willing to give Biden the benefit of the doubt. But if the influx continues, and if it continues and it doesn't show signs of letting up, that could hurt, and it could damage him in the sense of that they're not prepared, or that they haven't taken into consideration the issue of legal immigration as much as illegal immigration.
It makes you wonder, what do you do? Because we are surrounded, certainly to our south, by countries that are in such dire economic straits, and there's not much vaccine down there. I mean, they're worried about COVID. They're worried about all kinds of things. And then I think some conservatives would say, well, if you are too welcoming, naturally they're going to flood here. And what Donald Trump was doing was, I don't know, tough love or something to that effect, that it was discouraging people from coming. And maybe that's the right way to do this. I don't know. But you wonder where does this lead, and how big of an issue is it? And what is he supposed to do? What do you do when people are just flooding here? I don't know. So yeah, that's going to be a major issue. Let's go to Bruce. Hello, Bruce.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I have two quick comments and then a question. First of all, on immigration, that's a privilege. It's not a right. Also on Joe Biden, he was put in there. You know, here he is, a 78-year-old man. The liberals are going to run all over him. They're going to use him to end the filibuster. Then they're going to pack the courts. They're going to pack the states. They're going to add D.C. and Puerto Rico. Now, my question is, both Democrat and Republican administrations have got us into a $25 trillion and more debt. How do we get out of that? Besides inflation, inflating the dollar away, how do we get out of paying off that debt? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your call. There's several good things there, but let's take that last question. Our debt. It went up under Donald Trump. It's still going up. And what do we do? I feel like it used to be people were concerned about it. Now people aren't as concerned about it. How concerned should we be, and what do we do?
Well, we are in a position that does seem that neither political party has taken debt seriously. The one issue could be, I mean, one way you get out of it is to impose more taxes to pay off more of the debt. That's not a politically popular thing, but if the debt begins to erode the ability of the government in terms of if interest rates start going up so that the government is ending up paying more to finance the debt, you're going to get into a situation where it might either deflate the dollar or reduce the value of the dollar or require Americans to pay higher taxes. That is one of the concerns. Obviously, in a way, we've had instances in our history where we have run up huge deficits. Those have usually been in times of war. And the pandemic was justified as almost this type of emergency in which you could run up those deficits because it was such an emergency situation, and that when you come back to normal, then you would reinstate some of the restrictions, taxes, and others. I don't know whether we're capable of doing that. I mean, we may be in a situation where we are going to have a very, very large debt. Servicing that debt will become a very large burden of the American budget. So the caller raises a really good question. And I think economists are divided on it. Obviously, if the economy were to grow rapidly, if we were to have a real boom, some of that could go toward retiring the debt. But at the same time, we have sort of so expanded the debt that that might be unlikely.
And the danger is what? What happens if the debt is out of control? And maybe it is out of control. What happens if we don't deal with the debt? What is the danger?
Well, that's, in a way, the danger is undermining the fiscal solvency of the country and undermining the dollar itself as a valued currency. And so what could happen conceivably is that were the dollar to be so depreciated in value, other currencies could become much more the realm of in the international trading. If the dollar were to, for example, to be devalued, lots of foreign companies, commodities, and the rest would not want to have the value of their products in dollars. And so Americans could find themselves facing great inflation in their ordinary lives, having to pay a lot more for everything because the dollar was so depreciated because of the debt. So that's probably the biggest danger that could come from an unrestricted and continuing use of the debt.
Wow. Well, that's scary. All right, we have to take a break, and I want to get to his other questions. He talked about making D.C. and Puerto Rico states and packing the courts, saying that's what Democrats want to do. That has been talked about. I want to talk about that when we come back. And if you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.